The Oval Office, a symbol of American power and diplomacy, bore witness to a contentious clash between then-President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy in February 2025. The meeting, intended to showcase unity between the two nations, quickly devolved into a public exhibition of discord, leaving a lasting stain on U.S.-Ukraine relations. Sources present described a tense atmosphere as Trump, flanked by Vice President J.D. Vance, unleashed a barrage of accusations at Zelenskyy, criticizing his perceived lack of gratitude for U.S. support amidst the ongoing conflict with Russia. The meeting ended abruptly, without a joint statement or any tangible agreement on further assistance to Ukraine. This public display of animosity sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles, casting a shadow of uncertainty over the future of U.S. support for Ukraine. It also raised serious concerns among U.S. allies in Europe, who were already apprehensive about Trump's commitment to NATO and the collective security architecture that had maintained peace on the continent for decades. At the heart of the Oval Office clash were Trump's repeated accusations that Zelenskyy had been insufficiently grateful for the billions of dollars in military and financial aid provided by the United States since Russia's invasion. Trump, known for his transactional approach to foreign policy, seemed fixated on extracting expressions of personal gratitude from Zelenskyy, a stance that struck many observers as inappropriate and counterproductive. Zelenskyy, for his part, appeared taken aback by Trump's confrontational tone. While acknowledging the importance of U.S. assistance, he emphasized that Ukraine was fighting not only for its own survival, but also for the principles of democracy and sovereignty that underpin the international order. He stressed that Ukraine's resistance was in the strategic interest of the United States and its allies, as it aimed to contain Russian expansionism and prevent further instability in Europe. The February clash drew sharp criticism from across the political spectrum, including from former President Joe Biden. In a recent interview with the BBC, Biden condemned Trump's behavior as beneath America, arguing that it had damaged the United States' reputation as a reliable ally and a champion of democratic values. He expressed concern that Trump's actions had emboldened autocrats like Russian President Vladimir Putin, while undermining the morale of America's partners abroad. Biden, who during his presidency had prioritized rebuilding relationships with NATO allies, strained by the Trump administration, argued that the United States had a moral and strategic imperative to support Ukraine in its fight against Russian aggression. He stressed that a Russian victory in Ukraine would have dangerous consequences for the international order, potentially emboldening other authoritarian regimes to pursue expansionist agendas. Biden went further in his critique of Trump, characterizing his predecessor's foreign policy as modern-day appeasement. He argued that Trump's willingness to overlook Putin's human rights abuses, interference in U.S. elections, and aggression against Ukraine had only emboldened the Russian leader. He drew parallels to the appeasement policies of the 1930s, which failed to deter Nazi Germany's expansionism and ultimately contributed to the outbreak of World War II. Biden's use of the term appeasement carries significant historical weight and reflects a growing concern among foreign policy experts that Trump's approach to Russia risks emboldening Moscow and undermining the post-World War II international order. They point to Trump's repeated praise for Putin, his skepticism of NATO, and his willingness to withdraw U.S. troops from Europe as evidence of a dangerous drift towards accommodation with an autocratic power. Section 5. The Transatlantic Alliance at a Crossroads. The Oval Office clash and Biden's subsequent comments have brought into sharp focus the state of the Transatlantic Alliance already strained by Trump's presidency. Trump's America First approach, which often prioritized narrow national interests over multilateral cooperation, had alienated many of America's closest allies in Europe. His administration's withdrawal from key international agreements such as the Paris Climate Accord and the Iran nuclear deal further eroded trust in U.S. leadership. The Biden administration has made repairing relations with European allies a top priority, emphasizing the importance of transatlantic cooperation on issues such as climate change, trade, and security. However, the damage inflicted by Trump's presidency, culminating in the public humiliation of Zelenskyy, will take time and effort to repair. The Oval Office clash served as a stark reminder of the fragility of the transatlantic alliance and the need for sustained U.S. leadership to preserve it. Biden also used his BBC interview to push back against Trump-era criticisms of U.S. financial support for European defense. He forcefully rebutted the arguments of Trump and his allies, like then Vice President J.D. Vance and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who had questioned the need for continued U.S. subsidies for NATO and European militaries. Biden argued that such a view ignored the critical role European allies had played in supporting the United States in the aftermath of the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Biden reminded viewers that NATO allies had invoked Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty, which considers an attack on one member an attack on all, for the first and only time in response to the 9/11 attacks. He pointed to the thousands of European troops who had served alongside U.S. forces in Afghanistan and Iraq, as well as the significant financial contributions made by European nations to those conflicts, as evidence of the tangible benefits of transatlantic security cooperation. Beyond the specific policy disagreements, Biden also expressed deep concern about the implications of Trump's rhetoric for U.S. global standing and the future of the international order. He specifically questioned Trump's repeated statements expressing admiration for authoritarian leaders, his dismissive attitude towards democratic norms and institutions, and his transactional approach to foreign policy. Biden argued that such rhetoric undermines the United States' moral authority and its ability to lead on the world stage. He warned that Trump's words and actions had emboldened autocrats around the world, while eroding confidence in the United States as a reliable partner and a defender of democracy. He argued that the United States had a responsibility to uphold its commitments to its allies and to promote a rules-based international order, something he believed Trump had consistently undermined. The Oval Office clash between Trump and Zelenskyy and Biden's subsequent comments raised profound questions about the future of American leadership in the world. Trump's America First approach, characterized by a skepticism of multilateralism and a willingness to prioritize short-term gains over long-term alliances, represents a significant departure from the bipartisan consensus that has guided U.S. foreign policy for decades. Biden's criticisms of Trump's foreign policy, and his emphasis on repairing alliances and restoring American leadership, suggest a return to a more traditional approach to U.S. global engagement. However, the scars left by Trump's presidency, particularly his handling of the U.S.-Ukraine relationship, will be difficult to heal. The world is watching closely to see whether the United States can regain its footing as a reliable partner and a champion of democracy. The February 2025 Oval Office clash between Trump and Zelenskyy stands as a defining moment in U.S. foreign policy. It exposed the stark contrast between two visions of America's role in the world, one rooted in transactional diplomacy and skepticism of alliances, the other grounded in a commitment to multilateralism and the defense of democratic values. Biden's forceful rebuke of Trump's actions and his defense of the transatlantic alliance signal a desire to restore American leadership and reaffirm the United States' commitment to its allies. However, the road ahead remains uncertain, and the future of the international order hangs in the balance.